Hi guys, I'm going to show you how to trim your pot once you have it. So I threw this the other day in my last video. I made a nice smooth top. Now my bottom doesn't look so good. So if you notice the top of your wheel head has circles, you're going to not do this on a bat. Now if you're throwing a plate and it's too wide to fit between the bends, then you need to use the bat, but usually you'll just be able to do it straight on the wheel head. I'm going to try to eyeball it first. Put it as close to the center as I can using my eyeball. Turn my wheel on, and you can tell it's not centered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hand on top and just let my finger glide. I'm going to slowly take my needle tool and go until I touch the clay. And you can see right here, I didn't touch the clay at all, but back here, I cut a line in it. So in this space here, where I didn't touch the clay at all, I want to move my piece towards that. So I'm going to find the center of that line, which is about here. I'm just going to slowly move it towards there. I like to pull towards me so I can control it better, and then just test. It's really like trial and error. You will not get this on your first try. So over here, I'm just moving it teeny tiny little spaces. All right, I got it. So I'm going to turn it off. Then I'm going to take chunks of soft clay that we're going to roll together, and we're going to create just little coils called lugs. Once I have it centered, and I did all of that work to get this to stay where it is, I'm going to hold it down so I don't accidentally knock it off of center. I'm going to hold it down, wrap the lug around it, and then I'm going to push it into the bat head. So I'm not pushing it into the piece, I'm going straight down. Three is the strongest kind of shape, making that triangle. So I'm going to use 3 lugs to hold it on. When you're ready to trim, your piece will be leather hard, meaning that it is hard enough that you can't like leave fingerprints in it, but it's still soft enough that it's not going to like pop off, and it should come off in curls, not in like big chunks. So it should look more like this and less like pieces just flying off the edge. I'm a big fan of this guy. This is my favorite trimming tool. There's a few of these in the trimming cups, but there's also in your toolbox. You should have one of these. So I'm going to turn the wheel on. I'm going to keep my hand up here, just as like a insurance test. And then I'm going to come in at 3 o'clock at like a 45-ish, 30-ish degree angle. I'm just going to start carving. Now I let this guy get a little bit too hard before I trimmed him. So that's why he's kind of crumbing off instead of coming off in ribbons. So the goal here is just to even up that footing and to make it look nice. Because when you first take it off the bat, it doesn't really look nice. So you should really think about what shape is on the inside. And if your walls are really thick, you're not going to want to take too much off. But if your walls are pretty thin, I'm sorry, I had that backwards. If your walls are really thin, you're not going to want to take too much. But if your walls are really thick, you have more wiggle room. I tend to, and you probably will too, throw with thick bases down here. It's just kind of a beginner's thing. So I want to give my cup, this is going to turn into a cup, I want to give it a footing. So this started out life straight down like this did, and then I gave it this little ring here. So I'm going to do that on this pot. So I'm going to take the nose, and I'm just going to kind of push it in a little bit more and carve more away. And I can kind of smooth out that line. How you trim your piece is determined too by what you want to make it. Cups generally have feet, bowls always do, plates always do. It's a thing to protect the tables. But if you're doing a vase, you won't necessarily need a foot. We also have this tool, and I really like these because they can give you kind of tight corners. Okay. And now to get the foot, the top of my piece is completely flat. Well, it's kind of off center, wobbly wise, but it's flat on top. First, I'm going to turn off my piece. I'm going to tap it. If there's any give, if you push on the top and it kind of buckles a little bit, don't do anything to it because you threw with a really thin bottom. If it's pretty solid sounding, you can kind of tap here and hear the difference. It's pretty solid sounding. You want to give it a foot, so I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to take my nose of my tool, and this is the edge. I'm going to stick it down about 1/4 of an inch in to 1/2 of an inch. Give yourself more room than you think you want for your foot, just in case you accidentally make a mistake. So now I have a ring. So let me see if I can control this. You see that little ring I threw there? I don't want to have this. I want to keep this, but I want to carve all of this stuff out. I'm going to do that by putting my nose down and then slowly turning the tool flat to get to the middle. So I'm going to turn the wheel, put the nose down, and then I'm slowly rotating my tool towards the middle. This is why I said if you don't have a lot of clay in your base, just to skip this step, because I don't want you to make a planter when you're trying to make a mug. Okay, when you're all done and you think you've got it, I'm probably going to take a little bit more off the sides here. I like to kind of just gently round the edges of the foot off. That's more just so I don't scratch the table up. Okay, when you're finished with your foot, well, you think you're finished with your foot, take your flat tool and lay it on top. If you can see through it, then your foot is good. If you can't see underneath of it, your foot needs to go deeper. My foot needs to go just a smidge deeper. Ooh, I knocked it out of center. Can you see that I knocked it out? So what I need to do is I need to retest it. So I'm going to pause it. All right, I got it recentered. So what happened there is that when I was trimming on the top, I caught a piece of grog, which is a little rock, and it pulled the whole thing off. Sometimes when that happens, you can just plop it back down. Sometimes when that happens, it knocks it out and you have to recenter it. So I just took my legs off and I kept on going. So I'm going to be careful not to grab the grog. Now, lucky for you, your clay is not super groggy. So I'm actually going to turn it to the side here to Okay, so trimming is not super fast, and it is pretty important. If you turn in a piece that has not been trimmed, I'm not going to give you credit for it. I'll fire anything you want me to fire, but I'm not going to grade something that is unfinished. Okay, so this guy's done. I'm going to take my legs off. These legs can, generally speaking, go back in the clay bin. I'm in the bag by the blue bucket. I'm going to take my piece off, clean it off a little bit. And my standing pot. I'm going to put a little handle on here, which will be its own little demo. And then make sure that you write your name on the bottom. So I've got EE, and I'm all done. All of these little clay chunks that are living in the wheel splash tray now, make sure you put those in the blue bucket, and they'll get turned back into clay eventually. So we don't throw any of this stuff away. We're just going to recycle it, all of this stuff. Okay. Good luck and have fun throwing.